Okay, we're going to try and identify the best full forward in Gaelic football just now. The thing that we noticed, Michael Verney, as we were going through it, is there's absolutely no shortage of options. Just, I mean, if you're going to start with Dublin, who are the All Ireland champions, Conor Callahan generally plays in there. Paul Ganey with Kerry, but it doesn't just stop there. There are actually possibly even more so than any other position, just an embarrassment of riches there.
Yeah, no, I'd say this is the best quality line that we're going to have, or best quality position we're going to have in the pitch. You'd easily take six or seven of them and spread them out: half forward, centre forward, wing forward, corner forward. If you had them, such is the quality. I suppose it's funny when you think about it. Like, if we were looking at it maybe 10 years ago, you'd be looking at a Donaghy, a big rangy kind of a full forward. If you're looking at it 20 or 30 years ago, you'd be looking at your Bomber Listons, those type of players, big rangy players where aerial ball usually was lobbed in. Totally different now. I'm not saying the likes of Conor Callaghan couldn't win high ball; they definitely can, but it's generally not the first point of attack, or not even the second point of attack at this stage. It's more work through the hands or a little quick pop pass in front of the full forward. But we've got some absolute sharpshooters in there.
And like we talked about the corner forwards already, and we decided David Clifford would be considered that, but I'm sure he can and will play this position over time. But generally, with a full forward, it's someone who you get the ball into them, and this is the last lad you want left on his own, isolated one-on-one against a weak full-back or somebody who can be got at. Like Colin McShane has probably revolutionised Tyrone there in the past year. Of course, he suffered a bad injury in the league, but who knows what way the season will go now. He might be back to play a significant part whenever it does resume. So you've someone like him, you definitely don't want to leave him on his own. And Jason Foley, I thought, did a pretty good job on him insofar as it could be done in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2019. But definitely McShane, and going in and becoming, I think he was joint top scorer in the championship, and not only that, he won an All-Star for himself. So he's now up there in the conversation. Con definitely is in the conversation. Michael Quinlivan. Now, he was going to go away for the 2020 season, a bit like Donny Kingston in Laois. But those lads, who knows where they'll be. I mean, I think anyone who was planning on, for example, going travelling the world, that'll probably be put in the back burner for a while. And we might see some players, even Gary Brennan, for example, lads who weren't going to play whenever this next season happens, coming back into it. So Quinlivan's in there. Shane Walsh, he's been moved to full forward this year, and does that mean that we don't look at Damien Comer, who has been a full forward for years, albeit injured last year? Do we not look at him in this position now? Michael Murphy always wears 14, but is he a full forward?
Yeah, I suppose the thing is, you're picking who you think is the best in that position right now. I was at two Galway League games, and Comer came on in one, and I think he started the other. And it was more driving from out the pitch. It was more from a half-forward role and taking the ball on. Shane Walsh was named 14 and invariably was 30 or 40 yards out, and he was picking the ball up. He's maybe picking the ball up in a centre-forward role, but if he had been playing centre-forward in previous years, he would have been picking the ball up, God only knows, in his half-back line or out around midfield. So it looks like that they're going to play him inside, because he has that he's lethal off left and right and can absolutely kill a defence. You're talking about who's the last lad you want on the ball for that killer chance. You want, that type of player, Shane Walsh. So I'd be looking at him in full forward, definitely. It looks like Pádraig Joyce isn't going to move him around. And like, to be honest with you, it looks very like Pádraig Joyce predominantly played 14. It was a similar type of player to Shane Walsh. And it looks like he thinks he has a plan of how to get the best out of him. And that's playing him 14, it's giving him the captaincy, he's giving him the responsibility. And like I'd say, they're bullying in lots of ways, more so than any other county, because of just how well they were going when things kind of had to kind of hold up for a while. But I'd definitely be looking at him as a full forward. And with his form at the moment, he'd definitely be in the equation with the top two or three there, the full forward line.
Yeah, the one thing about Shane Walsh, I mean, Pádraig Joyce was a brilliant player, but there's no way he had the pace that Shane Walsh has, and that there was actually a similarity. The way he looks like he's just skating on ice, he's going that fast and accelerating away from players, in the same way that Daniel Flynn of Kildare, who's back with them this year. Daniel Flynn, if you put him into the Dublin team, I think he would probably destroy teams. Like, his pace, his power, his finishing ability, I think both him and Shane Walsh would probably be, I don't know, put them in the top teams in the country, and would they arguably be up here as, would they be better than Con and Ganey? You always lean towards the likes of Con because he's with the All-Ireland winning team and nobody can dispute what he's done.
Possibly, which it's all ifs and buts really, but I just don't think Daniel Flynn has the same consistency as some of those players that you've mentioned. And to be honest with you, like this season aside, Shane Walsh wouldn't have that same consistency either. Like invariably with Khan and even with Paul Ganey, you know what you're going to get from those guys. They're going to terrify defenders. Even on a bad day, they're going to terrify defenders. Daniel Flynn obviously took a year out last year. It's definitely taken his time to get his feet in the game again now at the moment. So, like on present form, I couldn't have him in the mix. I understand where you're coming from. If he had all those forwards kind of doing a lot of the hard work for him and putting chances on a play for him, it would probably be a different story. I just couldn't have him or Shane Walsh. I couldn't have them above Ganey or Con O'Callaghan just from the consistency element, because like with since Con burst on the scene, like he kind of his first year he got Young Footballer of the Year. The second year I thought it was smart, and I wonder, I'd love to talk to Jim Gavin and even talk to Con. You're never going to get the information. I wonder, did they realise that he was a marked man, and he played a totally different role the second year. He was the provider, he was the forager a lot of the time, because he had extra attention and he invariably had one of the best defenders marking him as a result of being a marked man and so much footage of how he played. And then in the last year or two, he's been able to kind of cut loose again. Do you know the way when there's a pressure on a fella, he's after bursting in, and it's like the second season syndrome, and often they don't deliver. I think that Gavin maybe had a conversation with him, or other people did in the background, and said, we don't expect you to do what you did last year. It's going to be maybe hard to do that, but we might get you to do other things. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I know what you mean. I think they also just changed how they played and became more and more methodical. And as like previously, Dublin would kind of hit teams on the counter attack, and everyone would take off at speed. And I thought that suited Con because he was getting quick ball on the front foot. And then they became a team that slowly, methodically built up and moved the ball over and back around the face of the 45 until they eventually got someone coming from deep and busting through. So I think that definitely meant that he got the ball. He didn't get the ball in space. He normally got it with numbers around him, and then he's been put in the square, and when ball has got into him, he's done a lot of damage. I mean, Lee Keegan's the best marker in the game, and Con scored a couple of goals on him last year in the All-Ireland semi-final, and I think he'll do that probably to most players if you put him in one-on-one, and I suppose that's why he has to be up there, up at the very top of this conversation.
Can I just say on Con as well, like, it's funny, like, you've obviously seen his hurling exploits and how dynamic he is, particularly in that position. Like, you to be fair, I don't think you could play him anywhere else on a hurling pitch. I don't think you should play him anywhere else on a hurling pitch.
That's absolutely not true, by the way, because he's playing the half forward line for us, and he's been very good.
Yeah, okay, but he really exploded when he went full forward, because that was his position, because he has that little kind of a burst that he can dust defenders, and he just has goals in mind, and kind of his role changed with Dublin. Like, it went from like a centre forward and maybe half forward, corner forward, to this full forward. Get this guy the ball and he will score. That's what it turned into last year. And like over the next decade, he could potentially go down as one of the best of them all if he continues the sort of form that he had this year. He just has that X factor in front of goals. Like, I don't think you'd see him out in the half hour line or anywhere bar full forward in the next 5 to 6 years for Dublin, barring there's some like major need for him to go out there. He just has that killer instinct in front of goal. And I don't know if anybody else on the list has that same killer instinct. That, like, conceivably Con could get a hat-trick in an All-Ireland final, no problem. He could. That you could see that happening. I don't know if any of those other lads you could see like really killing a team on the biggest stage like he could.
Well, then there's other teams that aren't quite pushing for an All-Ireland, but they're kind of in the chase and pack. Roscommon have Conor Cox, who was unbelievable in his first year and just scored some wonderful points. Obviously, deliver an iconic title in the first season, and I know I said wonderful points, but really eye-catching stuff. Improbable sort of scores that probably, you know, that's down to that Kerry background, I suppose, to some degree. Brian Hurley, you know, this guy has gone through hell on the injury front, and I know it definitely didn't happen for him against Dublin in the Super 8 game last year at Croke Park, and ultimately he was taken off. But he's a really, really top footballer, and I think he would do a lot of damage on the very best team. So there's some lads here who are brilliant despite the fact that their team isn't one of the leading lights and they're not always getting ball in front foot, they're not always in space, their team isn't always on top. And I don't think you can discount them just on that basis because they have more obstacles to overcome to get there. So I just don't think that you can just say, right, we're going to look at whoever plays for Dublin, Kerry, and kind of, leave it at that alone.
No, I'd agree with you. Yeah, I thought Brian Hurley was definitely good against Dublin early on, but I suppose it faded out maybe as Cork faded out of the game realistically. But Brian Hurley, I remember doing an interview with Brian Hurley recently enough, and you would have been doing one as well at the same time, and you'd so feel for him. You know the way he just tells you his story, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, you've had some hardship. You've had to overcome every obstacle to get here, and just his he has a tattoo on his bicep here. It's of a pier down in Cork. It's where he used to kick football when he was young, and I'd say he got a tattoo there just to remind him. He looks at it obviously fairly regular of just his love for football and simpler times, and I think all that sort of stuff kept him going through the hardship. Like he had like Paul O'Connell style hamstring injuries. Like I think it happened to him twice, and he was pinned up. He had his leg pinned up and had to hold it up for about 2 months in his house. That was part of the rehab. And to see what he did with Cork at various stages last year was absolutely unbelievable. And if he had been injury free, I've no doubt he would be in the mix. And he's in the mix as it is, but I've no doubt that he would be up there near the very, very top.
Yeah, I actually did an interview about that tattoo, which is on ourgame.ie. You can search his name in the bar in the top corner, and you'll find that interview. So right, we have to go and pick it. I have to go with my cooler clubmate Con. Yeah, I've kind of almost played devil's advocate and said why others should get it, but I just think he's probably done so much at this stage of his career. He's probably still only 23, maybe approaching 24, and he just, like, Con means goals, if we're honest, in both codes really over the years. So I give it to Con, but I do think the quality of some of these other forwards is really good, and Michael Murphy doesn't always play full forward. If he played full forward the whole time, I think he'd probably be in the conversation too. And then I'd imagine him playing for Dublin. I think he'd be almost unstoppable. But who are you going for?
Yeah, there's some absolute killers in this list. Like, there's lads that you take your hand off to have full forward. I think, like, in the form that Cottle McShane was in last year, that's why there was so much excitement about the prospect of him, like, firstly leaving, so much disappointment, and then so much excitement about him coming back. Because, like we talked before, like Tyrone are All-Ireland contenders with Cottle McShane playing. They're not All-Ireland contenders in my view when he's not playing. Then you have Paul Ganey, who's been unbelievable for Kerry really since probably about 2014. He's been absolutely class and was nearly at his best last year. And Shane Walsh is probably, well, Con didn't play in the league, so you can't judge him on that. But Shane Walsh is probably in the best form of any of those players right now. But for what he has done and for what he has the potential to do over the next decade, I genuinely think if Con stays playing at the level he's playing, or at the moment, or a similar level, I think he could go down as one of the truly great forwards. So it's Con O'Callaghan for me.
And anyone else out there, if you have any thoughts, let us know on Twitter, and we might discuss it again in the future.